immediately. This is what we saw in top 8 of the Gdansk Regional Championships, where Michael was eliminated against Rain. So let's see as we get into game 1.
Game number 1 of the Masters Division top cut here at the Latin America International Championships, and we're just off to the races here, Aaron. Basket Legion and Pelipper here for Shohei, and we've got the King Gambit and the Rillaboom for Michael.
Oh, there are a lot of mind games here immediately. Rillaboom's grassy terrain activates. There's a lot of offensive pressure, and so yeah, it's the question, you know, yeah, do you want to go for the Sucker Punch immediately? Oh, okay. You can see the hover for Sucker Punch. There's the hover for Kowtow Cleave as well. Basket Legion here is water Terra. It's not something like a grass Terra, right? So you could Sucker Punch and Grassy Glide that slot, but the Basket Legion then, of course, could switch out. Pelipper right now could pressure with Tailwind. It pressures with Weather Ball. It pressures with Hurricane. If you double up into that slot, it protects, and then the Basket Legion switches into our Archaludon. That can be really scary, and so it's a really explosive turn 1 immediately. Someone's going to have to make some predictions, but it's going to be the Aqua Jet to start.
Okay, Aqua Jet into the King Gambit. It's going to be able to get around the Sucker Punch because of the increased priority, but it was the Pelipper that goes for an attack, and so the Wood Hammer is going to take it out before the Pelipper gets to move.
It's funny because the last time I saw Michael against the Basket Legion, I think he Sucker Punched it like every time, and this time he's like, you know, I've learned. I'm not going to do that anymore. Just knocks out Pelipper. Critically, Shohei goes for that Aqua Jet to try to avoid a Sucker Punch from the King Gambit, and Michael says, you know what, I'm faster than your Pelipper. I can just double up into that slot, right? So Pelipper, of course, had the ability to protect there. Like, turn 1 is so explosive because if you make the prediction correctly, you get a pretty big lead. If Pelipper protects and Basket Legion takes a big risk and goes for Wave Crash, you can just knock out the King Gambit, but that's a really risky play.
And it's really bad for Shohei, too, because now you're locked into Aqua Jet.
Exactly.
You've got Choice Band, so all you can do right now is sit with Aqua Jet unless you actually transition that Basket Legion out.
Yeah, I really wonder now, like, what comes in? What did you bring in the back? Like, Shohei has so many good Pokemon on his team, but it's going to be the Archaludon. So Archaludon obviously is quite good until a Rillaboom, but as you called out, this Basket Legion is caught in a pretty tricky spot right now. King Gambit is also pressured a little bit, so we might see some switches this turn. It's like, do you really feel comfortable bringing or going for that Aqua Jet? We also see a really cool bring in the back. The Magmar actually is in this game.
Oh, that could be a big deal. Just because the rain is up doesn't mean that your Magmar isn't going to be useful. You have the opportunity to go for Will-O-Wisp onto something like the Archaludon. So no matter how many stamina stacks you do have, you're at least going to be able to help whittle away at that HP pool over time. You've also got the Amoonguss here. So that's going to be the 4th and final Pokemon revealed here for Shohei as we see this Archaludon start to get going.
And you're probably wondering why bring Magmar into a rain matchup, right? But Amoonguss hits the field. That's one of the reasons why. You also have Will-O-Wisp to potentially hurt the King Gambit. Electroshot into the King Gambit. Not going to be a body press there. Of course, gets the special attack boost as high horsepower comes out, and King Gambit does manage to set up Sword Stance, but it's still kind of tricky for it because now the Amoonguss can just Rage Powder any Sucker Punches away.
Yeah, and then you have to kind of wonder, maybe does your King Gambit, do you want to actually try to go for something like a Kowtow Cleave instead? Or do you feel like you need to actually run the risk of maybe getting this King Gambit put to sleep? I feel like King Gambit's already done so much in this game, though. Being able to knock out the Pelipper, you've already kind of done quite a bit of that King Gambit's duty, so do you actually leave it in for this point?
Yeah, this turn is interesting because you can see he's considering the Magmar switch in, right? So you can switch in Magmar, protect King Gambit, and then go for Follow Me the next turn. It's a generally pretty safe play unless you think your Magmar is going to faint on the switch-in, which I think is fairly unlikely. You could make the read and Draco Meteor into the Rillaboom slot or go for Electroshot into it, but even then the question is, do you get the knockout? Magmar is a really bulky Pokemon, so I think, yeah, Magmar, once again, not the most intuitive Pokemon to bring in this matchup, but I think it's really, really smart, and this is perfect because this is a Pokemon you want to protect your King Gambit.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, it's the shiny variant too. I don't know how I feel about that one, but you know, style points I guess here for Michael. You got the protect onto the King Gambit though, so it's up to Shohei to try to actually get something done, and it's just an Electroshot.
Shohei looked very happy though. Did he call this? Is it the +2 Electroshot into the Magmar slot? Now it is!
Oh my gosh, even though this Magmar has that Eviolite, it is going to take a huge amount of damage from that +2 Electroshot, but you can see where this Vital Spirit can come in handy as the Amoonguss tries to score that slot, maybe trying to catch something on the switch-in, but there was a Rillaboom in that place beforehand.
Yeah, crucial turn though. It's obviously the King Gambit there could have just sent it, gone for the Kowtow Cleave into Amoonguss, but you're so vulnerable to a body press or an Electroshot from the opposing end, and so really nice play by Shohei there. You still do get the safe Follow Me Kowtow Cleave this turn, right? Critically, the Amoonguss here has the ability to go for Protect. It's also Fairy Terra, so you could Fairy Terra defensively to survive the Kowtow Cleave, and with that, then the question is, do you go for Rage Powder to safely protect your Archaludon, or do you just spore in a King Gambit?
Well, it looks like it's going to be a Terrestrialization. So if it is going to be the defensive Terra onto the Amoonguss, then we know that this Amoonguss is going to be able to stick around just a little bit longer. But that means Shohei is going to be putting a lot of eggs into this Archaludon basket. Needs to make sure that you're going to be able to make good use of these +2 special attack boosts that you have from this Electro Shot, but you've whittled away this Magmar enough that another Electro Shot here is going to be able to knock it out. And that's going to give Shohei a much better spot in this game.
Yeah, this is going to be really interesting because now Sneasler can come out. Sneasler has close combat into Archaludon. You've got Dire Claw into the Amoonguss as well. It's a very powerful Pokemon that, of course, deals super effective damage. But Archaludon normally is going to be trained to survive one of those close combats, so there's the +2 Kowtow Cleave, but Amoonguss critically with that Fairy Terra able to survive the turn and heal back up with that Citrus Berry.
So there is an opportunity here for Shohei to be able to use that Amoonguss to go for a Rage Powder on this next turn. You are also going to be able to get the Spore into the King Gambit, so you're only dealing with one attack this time around rather than two for a double up into the Amoonguss.
Yeah, I think this is going to be so interesting because basically like the Rillaboom can handle Basculegion pretty well in the endgame, but the King Gambit slot is so exposed right now. You do have Sneasler as a switch-in, you do pressure close combat and Dire Claw, but you can maybe get one knockout, right? Like Dire Claw to KO the Amoonguss. I'm not sure what the damage roll on that is because Amoonguss did heal up with that Citrus Berry. I would expect it to maybe knock out, but it could be really close, honestly. So you see that Rillaboom in the back, but you really don't want to bring Rillaboom right now because Rillaboom is the best answer for that Basculegion. Rain is also slowly expiring, so that's something to think about as we get into the end of this game. But oh, there's that Stellar Terra. You can see the hover thinking about it, saying, you know what, I might just go for it, but if you go for close combat and Amoonguss Rage Powders, it's a disastrous turn.
You're kind of calling that Shohei wants to be able to put your Sneasler asleep instead, but I think this is a very difficult decision to make. Do you try to go after the Amoonguss? Do you try to go after the Archaludon? And you only get one shot to be able to get that boosted damage onto this poison or this this fighting type attack.
This is a tense turn because like the safe play kind of is to just go for Rage Powder and then target into the Sneasler slot. So I think you could do that, get the Sneasler down to Focus Sash, and then Basculegion comes out and can put Aqua Jet pressure onto it. I think one of the key things is how do you beat the Archaludon on the endgame if it's not getting hit by that close combat. So I think here Shohei could just go for something like Rage Powder plus Electro Shot.
You do have the opportunity though to have this Focus Sash, so you see Michael kind of smiling a little bit because if you go for the Dire Claw here, you're going to hope that with this Stellar Terra it's going to be enough to get a knockout into this Amoonguss, and it is.
And Grassy Glide the next turn, as well as Woodhammer. So it's going to be really close because you need the Rillaboom essentially to handle the Archaludon. We'll also see if King Gambit manages to wake up here, but to start, it's going to be the pivot.
So the pivot first, so now we're going to see this Rillaboom be able to set back up this grassy terrain, but I love that Michael was also going to try to go for the protect. If you get the wake up with the King Gambit, you also get a chance to protect yourself, to scout what this Basculegion is going to go for, but this King Gambit stays asleep. It is going to be the Aqua Jet commit from Shohei, so with the Rillaboom taking that instead, we're going to see the King Gambit get knocked out.
Okay, so yeah, now we get the Sneasler back in. Sneasler has Fake Out or Close Combat Pressure. Critically, it can go for the Protect as well. So my question is, like, you could, just go for something like, if you Fake Out the Archaludon, then you could just get Aqua Jetted, right? So that doesn't feel great. You can't click Fake Out into the Basculegion because it's Ghost type. You could protect the Sneasler, but if Sneasler ends up protecting, the question is, look how boosted the Archaludon is, right? Does the +4 Draco Meteor get the knockout onto Rillaboom? Because right now, you could just go for Draco onto Rilla, Aqua Jet onto Sneasler.
Oh, it feels like so many coin flips back to back to back, but Michael's hoping that he's going to be able to get this one right after so many sleep turns. He locked out in pretty fast, so I think he's very confident being able to play through this endgame. You can't second guess your judgment. Sneasler goes for the protect, but did he get this right? You can see Shohei having a reaction over there, and it's because the Aqua Jet actually goes into the protect of the Sneasler, giving some time for this Rillaboom to potentially make another move as the Grassy Glide connects onto the Basket Legion. It's not enough to knock it out, so the Draco Meteor into the Rillaboom is going to be enough to knock it out.
Yeah, the other question I had there is, does Grassy Glide knock out the Basket Legion? I was expecting it to, but like I think part of the thing, Shohei probably wasn't 100% sure, because Rillabooms can run a lot of different attack investments, and so, like, you know, for example, if you expect it to be like a mid-attack investment Rillaboom, then maybe you expect to survive, but if there's a lot of attack investment, maybe you expect to faint there. So that was really close. If the Grassy Glide just knocks out the Basket Legion there, I think the game is just over, right? Because then you just close combat to knock out the Archaludon. So how you train your Pokemon is so important, and if Basket Legion just faints the Grassy Glide, that's it. But Rillaboom's really common in this format, so I do expect Basket Legions to generally survive the Grassy Glides.
Wow. Yeah, I feel like whenever you actually see the Rillaboom be able to get the knockout, it's either with Grass Terra or it's with carrying Miracle Seed or the Meadow Plate.
Yeah.
Just for that extra bit of damage. Michael got so close, though. Remember, we were talking about this at the start of the match. Michael was saying, I just want to be able to take one game off to Shohei, want to see him in the finals again. It's not going to be this game as Shohei takes game number 1, but we still have another game of this best of 3.
Yeah, I think a couple key turns in that game. The call out saying, you know what, you're going to bring Magmar in that slot, going for Electro Shot plus Spore. It's generally pretty safe play as well, because it's a Rillaboom out into an Amoonguss and an Archaludon. And I think this is one of the downsides of Rillaboom often in this format, when you are up against an Amoonguss, right? Where like you just can't really do very much against him. You're high horsepowering for 20-25% max. And so it was a generally safe play to cover the switch in. The main thing there is Michael could have taken a huge risk and attacked with King Gambit there. He could have just said, you know what, I'm going to send it. I'm going to go for the Kowtow Cleave. Doesn't go for it. And then Shohei, I would say, pretty much went for relatively safe plays in the latter half of that game after he made that huge risk with Electro Shot that turn.
I want to watch through these replays again. What a tense couple of first turns, right? Because I feel like right out of the gates, we were taking a look at what this first turn could provide, and there were so many different decisions that both of these trainers could make that had so many different variations of outcomes. I was just at the edge of my seat trying to see like what's actually going to play out in front of us.
Yeah, and critically, I think knowing that Grassy Glide is not the guaranteed knockout onto Basket Legion, right?
That's huge info.
It was close, so I wonder if it's a damage roll, but either way, like you can't be 100% confident, obviously, on that knocking out, so that might change the way you have to play that one. I think Michael might have been trying to set himself for an endgame, thinking, you know what, my Rillaboom is pretty strong. If Grassy Glide gets the knockout, I just win there, right? And so, once again, a lot of this goes down to how the Pokemon are trained, and there's a whole wide range of damage rolls that can happen as well. But I think the Pokemon he brought were certainly decent in that game. I do think that Archaludon is just such a powerful Pokemon in this matchup, and I think the way that Shohei managed to bring it in really safely was very well done. And yeah, it just got so many Electro Shot boosts in that game.
Archaludon didn't take much damage, if any. So the Electro Shots are certainly paying off there, but also the way that Shohei was able to keep it safe was very good. Even when we took a look at the Amoonguss going for the Fairy Terra, actually getting knocked out to the Dire Claw, there were still so many ways that Shohei was like, I've gotten so much maximum value out of this Archaludon. It ended up doing its job. Let's get into game number 2 of this this set, and it's going to be a run back. This looks familiar.
Yeah, so once again, it's so interesting because Basket Legion is a Pokemon that can look absolutely incredible or feel useless, right, based if you get the turn 1 wrong. And so this is such a tough turn one, I think, from both sides. I don't think there's necessarily like a 100% safe play from either end to make. And so, okay, it's the Sucker Punch, but there's the switch. Michael tries to catch the Basket Legion. Archaludon can switch in very easily right now. Let's see if that is Archaludon. Yes, it is.
Okay, so you're not going to be able to do any damage to this Archaludon because you're trying to Sucker Punch that slot, but there is going to be a double switch. So the 4th and final Pokemon revealed here in this game 2 already by Shohei is it is going to be that Amoonguss. So a run back of the 4 from that first game. This Amoonguss is going to take the Wood Hammer, but of course it's going to be a resisted hit, so it doesn't feel that very much.
You see Shohei pointing in the player cam, be like, target the right side, target the right side. Archaludon, give me a free defense boost. So Michael doesn't give it the defense boost, but I think that's probably as safe as a play as Shohei could make. The only thing that you really risk there is something like a Sword Stance coming out from the King Gambit. I think Fairy Terra Amoonguss is actually so critical here because of its ability to handle King Gambit even if it sets up. And so now, okay, the Archaludon Archaladon happy to just launch electro shots like we saw in the last game.
Yeah, there was no priority attacks though, so Shohei knows that this Archaladon is going to be able to move first. The electro shot into the Rillaboom is not going to be too effective. You have the Assault Vest on top of the fact that it's going to be resisted, but the high horsepower into the Amoonguss, and now we get a chance to see the Kowtow Cleave follow-up with no Terra. It gets it so low.
Yeah, so low, but critically does not get the knockout. Shohei's Pokemon have just really been able to take these attacks throughout this set, and so now you get the Spore off. The Archaladon is free to boost again. I think Shohei is in a phenomenal spot right now because in game 1, Michael was able to at least get a knockout onto Pelipper. This time around, Pelipper's still fully healthy. Amoonguss, of course, has the regenerator, so could always switch out. But of course, if you switch the Amoonguss out into Pelipper or Basculegion, you get hit by like a Wood Hammer prediction. You would take a lot of damage. This is the classic scenario where now Rillaboom is in a really awkward spot. So you can see Michael saying, you know what, I'm not really going to get that much value out of high horsepower anyway. Might as well go for Wood Hammer in case you switch out.
That would be great, but we're going to see the switch out first of the Kingambit, so it's going to have to wait to start to take its turns of sleep as there is no switch from Shohei. It's just going to be another Electro Shot, and you can see Shohei is just smiling about this one. Imagine if you end up targeting into that Sneasler, and you're able to get so much damage. The Focus Sash here for the Sneasler is still going to make it stay around, but for how much longer?
Yeah, you imagine it's probably a Spore or a Pollen Puff into that slot, and Sneasler kind of feels like the ace here, right? Rillaboom just not able to do anything against this duo. The best you could do is high horsepower, but that wouldn't knock out Amoonguss anyway. There's the Pollen Puff, and Sneasler is probably the most important Pokemon in this matchup. That was the one way Michael had to deal with Archaladon in that previous game, but now it is just out of the way. The Rillaboom continues to do nothing. Magmar, if it hits the field, isn't going to do anything either. Kingambit's asleep. I think Shohei's won this already.
I think Shohei is so many miles ahead that we are going to be seeing this finish up shortly, but Michael's just pondering right now, can he do anything to get back into this game? The rain is up. Magmar's not going to be able to deal too much damage with something like the Overheat. And even if you're able to bring back in his Kingambit, it still has to take a mandatory turn of sleep. It's looking dire.
Yeah, I think even just with these two Pokemon, Shohei could win the game. He's got two Pokemon in the back, in the Pelipper as well as the Basculegion. It's not over yet, but I'm just running through all the lines, and I don't really see any out for Michael here because you need damage onto the Archaladon, but high horsepower, Overheat, a non-boosted Sucker Punch or Kowtow Cleave, it's just not that powerful. So yeah, opting for the Will-O-Wisp option here. Amoonguss does go for the Protect, but Electro Shot is just so powerful at this point.
And Electro Shot, this Archaladon is going to have so many boosts already. Let's add another one to the pile. Either one of these Pokemon on the receiving end of this are not going to want to take this too well. If it's the Magmar, I think it's just going to be a one-hit knockout with a +3 Electro Shot. Let's find out. Okay.
Just managed to hang on.
Maybe a little bit less of more of a wet noodle than I thought it would be. But the Will-O-Wisp does connect, so you are looking at this Archaladon with the body press is just not going to be as good. But where's the damage? How do you finish the job? How do you actually get through it? It's a little bit too much.
I think Sneasler was the entire win condition against Archaladon, so the fact it goes down means Archaladon can just 1v3 this, honestly, right? Because once again, like, maybe your best bet is to like hope for a misplay, but yeah, Michael realizes this game is lost. I think like with Shohei still having Rain active and Rain would stall out, you could bring Pelipper back out, and so what a dominant second game here as the 2023 World Champion defeats Michael KELSCH once again and moves on to top 16.
Sadly, Michael cannot rewrite that history, but he's had